parietal, occipital, temporal, naso, zygomatic, maxilla. The sutures are where the bones come together. Coronal, sagittal, lambdoidal, squamoso, internasal, intermaxillary suture. Temporal line on the parietal bone. Frontosquama, frontoglabella, superciliary ridge, supraorbital foramen, infraorbital foramen, lacrimal bone, lacrimoduct. In the eye orbit, there's 3 openings, a round optic foramen. There's 2 slits. The upper slit is the superior orbital fissure. The lower slit is the inferior orbital fissure. Internasal suture, nasobones. This is the nasal cavity with the nasal septum, and that consists of the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid and the vomer. These are 2 nasoconchi, inferior and middle nasoconchi. Intermaxillary suture, alveolar margin. Zygomatic bone, zygomatical-facial foramen. Squamoso suture, temporosquama, mastoid process, styloid process. Externoacusic meatus, zygomatic arch. Here's a suture that separates the zygomatic bone from the temporal bone. If you're on this side of the suture, this is called the zygomatic process of the temporal bone. If you're on this side of the suture, this is called the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. Right here, we're on the ethmoid bone. This is the cristigale, cribriform plate, olfactory foramina, sphenoid bone, lesser wings, greater wings, foramen rotundum. This is sella turcica. Sella turcica consists of the anterior clinoid process, posterior clinoid process, dorsum celli, optic chiasm, hypophyseal fossa. This is the temporal bone. Carotid groove, petrous portion, internoacusic meatus. This is the fossa that the brain's sitting in. Anterior, middle, and posterior cranial fossa. Over here, this is the maxilla bone, the palatine bone. Incisive foramen, median palatine suture, transverse palatine suture. Palatine process of the maxilla, horizontal plate of the palatine, greater and lesser palatine foramen, vomer, pterygoid process, mandibular fossa, foramen lacerum, foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, carotid canal, jugular foramen, occipital condyles, hypoglossal canal, foramen magnum, condylar fossa, nuchal lines, external occipital protuberance. Oops. This is the body of the mandible, mental foramen, alveolar margin, mandibular angle, mandibular notch, mandibular ramus, coronoid process, condyloid process, mandibular foramen, mylohyoid line.